Welcome back to day 8 of Hammerween. We're going to be talking 1957's Quatermass 2, which was the first film sequel to have two to indicate that it's an actual sequel. Before this, they would just have different names. Even after this, I think it was The Godfather 2 that was the kind of Hollywood film that really made that a thing. But anyway, that's just a bit of miscellany. Um, the reason the television serial is called Quatermass 2 isn't to say that it's a sequel, is because that's the name of the rocket ship that's involved in affairs. So, bit of trivia there. Apologies in advance for my throaty voice again. I'm really struggling with the cold. Just getting one of these filmed is quite a chore at the moment. So we'll go into this and plot synopsis and then review as always. Professor Quatermass has had his has had his funding cut, if not completely stopped, which puts him in a rather bad mood. Which, of course, he is. He's played by Brendan Levy, so he's always in a bad mood. Quatermass, at the same time, is investigating something that his team at British Rocket Group have discovered, which is these kind of meteorites that fall into Earth and have strange properties and are leaving kind of burns on people's faces, which are clearly not of this Earth. Being meteorites, that's normally the case. But they are hitherto unknown properties from these meteorites. They're doing things unknown to science. They're leaving these rather disgusting looking burns on people's faces, which we can, I think we're told a couple of times, it seems to be more in line with an infection rather than just a burn, even though it looks more like a burn. So Quatermass is up north, up near Carlisle, the Willardin Flats, as it's called. And he's quite astonished to see, as you see behind me here, there's Quatermass, that the model for his current project that's causing all the kerfuffle over the funding, as mentioned, that he's been working on to build a colony for the moon, the model that he has in his office for that has been fully realized and is already built near where these meteors are falling. So these two parallel stories come into alignment quite quickly into this film. It's a much condensed version, of course, from the television serial, but even then it ignores large chunks of the serial, especially towards the end. So Quatermass has to work with friends and authority, and much more than the Quatermass experiment. This is really an exercise in Nigel Neal's criticism of bureaucracy and red tape and jobs for the boys kind of mentality in British politics and society. Quatermass has to fight against all sorts of red tape just to get some sense of um, justice, some sense of even care for one of his friends who becomes afflicted by the burn, the infection, when the meteors strike. So Quatermass is in this place, Willardon Flats, as mentioned, and he can't even get a policeman at this point. They don't have them. They seem to be working on their own little colonial ways where everyone there is very clandestine, very odd, very muted, but they seem to be well paid for whatever work they're doing. They're very happy, but they're so well paid that there's no crime. They don't need policemen anymore. So this community kind of intrigues Quatermass, but he's not going to tend to worry about that because he has to investigate this place behind me, which again is a copy of the work that he's been doing for the moon, but is of course on Earth. Quatermass does investigate with the help of calling in some favors from politicians, a journalist played by Sid James, policeman. Lomax from the first film returns, unfortunately not played by Jack Warner. So Quatermass has to investigate much more than the first film. This is an investigation into affairs, and work with and against certain parts of society, be they the more working class types who populate the small village who kind of have built this place, or against the hierarchy in Parliament and Whitechapel, or Whitehall, excuse me, who are clearly against them for some reason. So, no massive spoiler to say, aliens are involved. It's a Quatermass production. The aliens are kind of embryo bionic, small, amorphous, and they work their way almost parasitically into people's nervous systems and use them as a host. So they turn them into, in effect, zombies, where your will is not your own if you have one of these burn marks on you anymore. And one rather terrific concept of the film is that we see people who we trust and we think are in a position of trust, ministers and policemen and whatnot. And then when Quatermass comes into the room and has a conversation with them and leaves, there's a burn in their hands. So they're the enemy. Don't want to go too much further than that into the actual plot, because I think this film has a really strong third act, um, and is well worth seeing fresh for that reason. A third act that would be much copied. So, in terms of what to think of the film, I think it may be a better film than the first Quatermass experiment. It's got a lot more ideas. It has a lot more because Nigel Neal, um, all the crew are back basically, except Val Guest, the director, is only doing a rewrite of Nigel Neal's script here. Nigel Neal didn't do any of the writing on the first one. He wrote the original serial, but not the film. So here, Nigel Neal was able to more directly have his work on the screen, and it really shows because a lot of the concerns, a lot of the issues, and a lot of the themes of Nigel Neal's work are visible on screen in this and weren't quite in the Quatermass experiment. That was very much a reinterpretation of Quatermass. This is pretty strong, undiluted Quatermass. The serial itself on television isn't as good as the first film, so it's almost the first one. Sorry, it's almost a reverse situation where the first serial, from what we have, is better, but the second film is better. So it's quite interesting the way that's Nigel Neal seems to have almost treated it as a chance to do a make good. But yeah. In terms of the cast, yeah, Brandon Levy's still playing it very, very Britishly, very boorishly. But you know, in places it works quite well because he is up against so many obstacles from on high that his frustration and anger is warranted for a change. So Quatermass being a bit oafish in this is a bit more understandable. Um, and he has a few more quiet moments. Not many, but a few more than he did in the first film. He's just never going to be ideal casting as Quatermass or Brandon Levy. But this will be the last time we see him anyway. So, wonderful production design. When you see Quatermass looking out on what seems to be a copy of his work, which again was supposed to be a moon base, but is now just up north near Carlisle. It looks terrific. It doesn't look shoddy because it's the 50s. It doesn't look B-movie. It looks terrific. The alien reveal towards the end, yeah, it is what it is for a 1950s horror film. It is what it is. I think this is a terrific sci-fi film, which, like the best sci-fi films, has ideas and has something to say about the society that we live in, and is a deeper film. much deeper film than the first one was, which took a serial that had plenty of ideas and turned it into entertainment. This, plenty of entertainment here, believe me, but it still has Nigel Neal's authorship all over it, all over it. Highly, highly recommended. So, hey. Well, we got through it. I hope you could stand listening to my voice while it recovers. Hopefully, I'll be in a shape to do a video tomorrow. I haven't decided what on yet, but hey. So I'll see you tomorrow for day 9 of Hammerween. We're battering through the month already, aren't we? Till then.